Welcome to the Highland Waves podcast, originating from Marshbrook Studios, located on a bank of the world-renowned Margaree River in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Canada. On Highland Waves, we feature stories about the people, the places, and those who come to visit us here in Inverness County. I'm Pat Wall, your host. This morning, I'm pleased to introduce our guest, Mr. Hugh Curran. Welcome to Highland Waves, Hugh.
Thank you.
He and his wife, Sue, are new additions to the East Margaree community here in Inverness County, Nova Scotia. Hugh, you were born in Donegal, Ireland, and moved to Canada in your early years. What motivated you to move to Canada back then?
Well, my father, we have 8 in our family, and my father was a Garda Síochána in the Irish police force. And
Where did you you went and studied in Halifax, did you not?
Well, I went to St. X, St. Francis Xavier University.
Oh, okay.
I was on I was a basketball, at the time I thought of myself as a basketball star and played on the basketball team. That was a big motivation because a priest I knew in Edmonton was a graduate from there, and he sponsored me to go to St. X and spoke so highly of it, I decided to take it on.
How was it? Did you enjoy it?
Well, it was a mixed up period in my life, and I enjoyed a lot of it, but it's when you're 18 and 19, everything is intense. So I ended up transferring out after 2 years to where my father moved down to Philadelphia area, and I moved down there.
Okay. So that's why you left Nova Scotia?
Yes.
Okay. You're a traveller and a man of multiple interests and accomplishments. You lived as a Zen monastic for some time. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Oh, yes. Well, yes. I was in Philadelphia doing my studies, trying to finish off my degree at Temple University, and one of my professors was a religious chairman of the religion department, and he was bringing over a man from Japan named Yasutani Roshi, who was well known in America. It wasn't well known at that time, and he was bringing him to New York as founding of and helped to found the Zen Studies Society there. So I joined, and after 2 years, actually I moved back to Toronto, and then moved down to Rochester to join Philip Kaplow, who was organizing a Zen center there.
Okay.
And I became his head monastic.
A monastic is a monk for our listeners.
Yeah, well, I would say now, looking back, it was a lay monastic, and I was taking some vows, but not full vows of a monastic.
Okay. During that period, you went on a pilgrimage to India and Japan, I understand.
Yes, I did, with Philip Kaplow and Pat Simons. There was another gentleman, Bob Kniebel, who went with us. He was an engineer. So we went to Kalimpong, Darjeeling, and McLeod-Ganji, Dharamsala, met with the followers of the Dalai Lama, and met with his assistants and listened to him giving talks and so on. So we spent a little time up there, and then New Delhi and Old Delhi, and then over to Calcutta, then up to Darjeeling and Kalimpong, which was my favorite. They were hill villages that the British used in the summertime, so wonderful places. Yeah. Okay.
Perhaps you can tell us about your experience there briefly.
In India, well, we went on from there to Japan, but after a few months, I guess it was after 6 weeks, and we were McLeod-Ganji, oddly enough, the name native to this area too. McLeod's was part of and that was the first place we went, and that was founded by the British as a hill station, and then near it was Dharamsala, and that was given over to the Tibetan monks from Tibet, who were refugees at the time, still are, I guess, from Tibet, and we spent a little time there. I met some wonderful people. It sort of reinvigorated or confirmed my belief I was on the right path of meditation practices and so on. And then I think we were there just a couple of weeks, and then we went back to Delhi. I went to meet some teachers of friends who were in the Sikh tradition. Spent some time with them. Then we traveled over to Calcutta. No, before we went to Calcutta, we went right up, I think, by train, and then by car up to Darjeeling, and it's a hill station too, way up 5,000 feet up in the mountains, and then Kalimpong nearby. And we met. I then met with a couple of people within the tradition of Buddhism. Yogi Chen was one of them. We spent some time with him, and he was very kind of an illuminating man who had made a deep impression on me. And then we actually had divided up. The four of us, and two went down to central India to go to the famous caves. There are Buddhist caves in the Elantra and so on. So then we met up back in, I think we met up in New Delhi, and then took a plane to Japan.
Okay.
Oh, to Thailand and then to Japan.
Okay. So you saw a lot in that period.
Very intense period, yes, a great deal.
So what motivated your move to Maine?
Well, I was I left after about 7 years in Rochester, and I had gotten married, Susan, and Susan Jakes was from New Hampshire, and we ended up coming to Vermont and then to Maine. There was a little community there. The teacher had been recommended. I had two friends who had meditated with in Philadelphia and New York, and they recommended that I would find it stimulating to be with Walter Noack, who was a musician and an opera singer, as well as being a Zen teacher.
Whoa!
And he had lived in Japan for 20 years and had quite a background in Zen. And he was in the middle of he just started and founded a Zen group there. And so we moved to Maine to join the community. And I helped for the next few decades. I was involved with guiding retreats and Zen and yoga retreats, and I was on the board of directors and so on for quite a few years. Okay. So, and then from there, it's where my son was raised, Hugh Curran, and he lives in Southwest Margaree.
Yeah.
And he moved, and I used to come up here quite a lot because every couple of years I'd visit Cape Breton.
I understand you were a founding and perhaps a current board member of the Morgan Bay Zendo.
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that was the place with Walter Noack, and he had resigned to become, just to put his whole life into music, which was his first love, and he had taught music in Japan as well. So he went back and he let us kind of found our own little lay group called the Morgan Bay Zendo. And so I became one of the leaders there and devoted quite a lot of my time to that and made many good friends there.
All right. And you're also a founder of the Friends of the Morgan Bay in South Africa.
No, that would be Friends of the Morgan Bay in Surrey, Maine. It was it was actually in the same near this community.
Okay.
And it was one of those things about 25 years ago. 20 years ago, there was big concern in the whole area about a development right on the bay, Morgan Bay, which is a beautiful bay, very much like Margaree. And we were thinking about what could we do. And then some neighbors came to me who are summer people, a couple of doctors, and said, could you do something to get something started here to save the land before it's taken over by developers? So I spent the next couple of years raising funds and organizing, and it's about that time I was getting more deeply involved with the university teaching. Okay. So I was teaching, peace study. It started on, environmental studies and philosophy, and then migrated to peace studies.
Yeah. I noticed that you did lecture on ecology and spirituality. Were those two topics a motivating factor in your involvement in Morgan Bay?
Yes, very much. I kind of out of the Zen practice. And then I went from there to studying. When I went to the university, I was doing early Irish literature. I was studying the old mythologies and got very involved with that. What was transmitted to me, you could say, by my father and uncle were the old stories, the old Celtic stories. So I studied and taught that for a couple of years, and then somebody recommended there, if I wanted to be more full-time, to look into peace studies. They needed people to get involved with peace studies. So they gave me carte blanche to teach whatever I wanted. So I said, as long as there was peace in it, as long as peace was in. So I got into teaching environmental studies, ecology, spirituality, and they're all oriented to the meditative, the contemplative traditions. So that's I made that the contemplative traditions as core.
Okay. Are you still involved as a director of the homeless shelter in Down East Maine?
Well, that was an interesting period. I was basically I was asked. I volunteered at a homeless shelter in Ellsworth, which was 10 miles from where we lived in Surrey, and there was a nun there who. Strangely enough, by pure coincidence, her parents were from Cape Breton, and her uncle was a priest in Judique called Hughie MacDonald. So she asked me, her name is Sister Lucille MacDonald, she asked if I would do some volunteering. I agreed to do that, and then after a few years, she said, would you be willing to be on the staff? And I said, well, I do have a little time in a week. I'm teaching only part-time. And so I went to 20 hours a week. And then after a while, she said, the director is leaving. Could you be the director? So I ended up for 5 years being the director, the co-director, and being very involved, deeply involved in the whole of that. And I still kept up my involvement with meditation, and we'd have morning sittings at the Zendo. We called the Zendo the practicing center.
Is there a large demand for homeless shelters in Maine and the U.S.?
Well, at any one time, there's 1 million homeless in the United States. 1 million people homeless. Unhoused is now the term they used. 1 million people unhoused, and I actually did quite a lot of interviews, radio interviews about the homeless, international homelessness and things like that. So I would give presentations every month for a while. So I did get involved with, trying to speak for the homeless at the capital at Augusta, at the state capital, where I tried to organize and help to raise funds for the homeless shelters of Maine. But we had a small group there, a small center. It had about a bed for 26 people. And I found that about half of everybody, of all the participants, the clients, would say were mothers with children, often single mothers with children. And those were a big part of our the homeless population.
So there's a large demand for homeless institutes in Maine.
Yes, that's still going strong, that particular one, the Emmaus shelter, and named after, biblical Emmaus. And but there's, the next one is Bangor, is about 35 miles away, and that had a shelter with about 50 beds, and then there was one down in Portland, the next one, and that had about room for about 70 or 80, I think, maybe 100 beds. So we'd always counted by the number of beds you had.
How well does the state of Maine fund these institutions?
Well, generally we could count on 50% that they would fund on any major projects. Like I would involve myself in renovating this shelter. It was an old post office, and we had to rebuild quite a lot in it. And raising the funds for that was a big part of our involvement with that. Yeah.
You seem to have written many articles and spoken on radio about homelessness.
Yes.
In your opinion, what's the most significant contributor to homelessness in general? Homelessness.
Well, it's always been it's always been there. I guess homelessness is all in Ireland and England. They call it, living rough, and a lot of people in London, Irish going there, would live rough. But the causes are multiple. They're often like we had a number of Canadians come down. They would be coming down to do blueberrying and then harvesting and so on, and they would somehow run out of funds or weather would be against them, and they would then come, and we might have several of those. We had people from this, who were refugees. We had people out of the jail system, all kinds of people, single mothers and so on. So it's very hard to say what causes it. So there's kind of a temporary homelessness, which you can, after a month or 2 months, which we would have to find homes for them, we would try to get subsidized housing for them to get them started to have their place. And so maybe half of them could be, with subsidies, would be able to find a place and then get a job.
Okay.
So we would try to help them on their way.
There are many organizations involved with homelessness.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to help that much, because homelessness continues to increase. It seems to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Do we need to change our approach?
Yeah. Yes, I've been out of the whole political issues. I'm involved for policy issues for some years, but I do keep my eyes on it to see what's going on, and so I'm not as engaged as I once was. But homelessness is, I would say the number one. I would say, if I was to say the number one cause is often, well, it's hard to say. We had a lot of veterans come out of the wars, Iraq War, Vietnam War, and so on. I think we might have about 15% of the homeless were coming out of wars,
really?
Veterans, and they suffer trauma. A lot of people are traumatized. We had a number of people who were very serious car accidents. They'd been traumatized. They lost their jobs. They couldn't work, and they were kind of thrust into homelessness. So, if you went down the list of what are the causes, they're just multiple. And sometimes, as I said, it's temporary. The situation can be fixed over a matter of giving them the right resources. You could get people to get back into, but some were deeply embedded in, mental illness, traumatized from past events, car accidents or whatever. But breakups, family breakups were probably, I would say, if I was to say what was the number one, with mothers and single mothers with children, family breakups.
Okay. At the University of Maine, you're a lecturer in the Peace and Reconciliation Studies program. How did that get started?
Yeah, I should say I was not an assistant professor. I was assistant professor within the Peace Studies, but I normally would be considered an adjunct professor in the last some years now. And how I got into that again was I was teaching part-time. I was teaching literature, English, writing, and I was then in the English department. Then I was teaching Zen Buddhism in the philosophy department, and happened one of my students was in the Peace Studies, and she said, everything you're teaching sounds more suitable to Peace Studies. Have you considered Peace Studies? And I said, I went over and talked to the director, and she said, you're perfect. We'll give you an office and help get you set up if you're willing. And we'll give tell us what courses you want to teach, as long as there's peace oriented. And I said, wow, that's a lot of flexibility there. So I got involved and stayed at it for 25 years. And
wow.
I'm still at it. I'm teaching graduate courses online.
Oh, okay.
And right now, one of my students is a priest from Cameroon. So I'm covering Cameroonian issues with him.
Okay. There must be a particular mindset that motivates people to become involved in peace studies. How successful is the program?
Touching on a very touchy subject right now, because I wrote an article on DEI, which has to do with. Well, I just say that it was developing and has been developing widely. One of the largest was in Notre Dame University. I think is probably one of the largest peace studies programs in the United States, and it's developing. I would say it's expanding. San Diego is another large one. But it's very dependent upon sponsors, patrons, and Notre Dame and San Diego both got a very wealthy patron, the wife of the founder of McDonald's franchise. So she was and he died and left her a few $1 billion. So she began giving money to the peace studies programs.
Oh,
she was
nice.
very intrigued, and that helped get a lot of them well underway and expanded, because you need faculty to teach a good peace studies program.
Okay.
But it's very political, and it was politicized under Donald Trump very much. He said he would withdraw $50 million or something, federal grants from the University of Maine, if it kept certain programs going, and they were intertwined with peace studies. So we had to start phasing out peace studies, which is now
Really?
still being phased out.
Okay. You've presented on tolerance and non-violence at the Global Council on Tolerance and Peace in Malta.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little?
Well, I was invited as a peace studies faculty to come to Malta, and a few years ago, and it was a worldwide symposium or conference, and the Dean of Education came with me, and we flew together, and we were there for I guess a little over a week, and I was asked to give a description of what I would address, and it was on and focus was on tolerance, and I said, well, yes, that's very much part of peace studies. So I was also studying Gandhi and peace issues. So I then decided, and then I was also having the background and having people I knew in the Irish peace movement as well. I'd helped to invite this woman named Williams who won the Nobel Prize in Peace some way back, and I invited her, and she encouraged me to be involved with the Irish peace movement. And so I presented in Malta from India to Ireland.
Okay. With what is happening in the world today, with wars everywhere, it seems important that it be addressed globally. Mm. Is it making a difference in your opinion?
You mean peace studies as a whole? Yes, because peace studies is really giving kind of a vocabulary, I think, to diplomats, and it gives a peace vocabulary. It puts front and center the teachings of people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
Okay.
It gives a kind of it legitimizes their history. A friend of mine at the university has written several books on Gandhi, Doug Allen, and they were very widely received, and he went around to India and to Europe to give talks about Gandhi from a Western perspective. And so I think it's this getting into the public eye with the studies, with peace studies and peace issues and reconciliation. So, for instance, up in Canada here, we had Truth and Reconciliation. Well, that's very intertwined with peace studies.
Okay.
And so they were drawing upon peace studies issues. The leaders there would have been drawing upon peace studies vocabulary and the way it was addressed in the past to give it kind of a substance.
Okay, that's great. We're changing course now. You and your wife have recently moved to our area, East Margaree, Nova Scotia. I understand, well, first of all, welcome
Thank
to you and your wife. What was the motivating factor for the move here?
Well, really, family was the motivating factor. We have grandchildren here, and our son, Oshin, moved here and got married to a woman, a very wonderful woman, Sarah, who had spent some part of her life here with her father living here in Inverness. So there was a kind of intertwining there. And we would come up, and actually it was because we were coming up that he became fond of Cape Breton as well. Okay. So that's how then The other ones was that were basically that I was retiring. Our program at the university is being phased out. I'm among the last faculty teaching there, and they allowed me to come and teach part-time over part-time and online course on peace studies with graduate level students. So given a lot of freedom, then plus health issues, and I'm now of an age. I have a neighbor near here, Simon LeBlanc, who attended St. FX with me at the same time.
Oh, really?
And we were
a small world.
We were in the same building together, and he actually told me. I just came across this by chance. We were coming up part-time part of the year, and I was sort of standing out on the little deck and porch, and he was walking by, and he introduced himself. And he said, yes, I went to St. FX way back in the 60s. And I said, I did too. And he says, where were you? What building were you? And I told him, where I was, which building. I was in the same building. Okay. And he said, in fact, I said I was on the basketball team. And he said, I was a roommate was on the basketball team, Bob Napolitano. I said he was one of my best friends. And so it's just like that, these kind of connections happen.
Yeah, he's your neighbor.
I know.
Are you still teaching at the University of Maine?
Yes, and this may be the last semester because of the phasing out of the program. Of the program. Okay. Yeah.
How has the transition to life here been for you?
Well, I was on the Bay. I lived on the Bay, and I got very involved.
The Bay, meaning
Morgan Bay
okay.
in Maine, in Surrey, Maine. It's down East Maine. It's really part of the Blue Hill Bay. It's interconnected, and I got very involved in that. And when I came here, we lived right near a bridge, which was very similar to the right down here, the Three Bridges. I call them the Three Bridges, the crossroad. Oh, yeah. We were living on the crossroad there. So
I see.
There's so many things that happened and the estuary is very similar. Tidal water similar, sure. And we had gotten involved there. So coming here, it seemed like we were sort of moving to very similar issues and circumstances. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting more involved in those issues.
Well, certainly the weather and the topography is similar to what it was back in Maine, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I should say something that it wasn't just Maine. I mean, my background, which we didn't examine, but when we came to Halifax, my father had been ahead of us for a year and worked in Ontario. He brought us to Keswick, Ontario, on Lake Simcoe, and then after about a year, he got a job. He was very involved with gold and thinking of gold because my 5 great uncles had been involved in gold mining in the Yukon, so he had that on his mind because 4 of them came back to Ireland and he knew them very well. But we ended up in Kirkland Lake and a gold mining town, and so we lived there before then moving out to Edmonton, Alberta, and I lived there and went through much of my school. 10, 12 years of schooling out there in Edmonton.
You've been around.
Well, yes, we moved a lot. My father was a romantic Irishman, and he always thought things were better in the next town.
Yeah. How is Sue doing? How is she adjusting to life here in East Margaree?
Well, she loves being near the family, near Oisin and the grandchildren. We have 2, Fiannan and Neva, the grandchildren, who go actually to the academy just down the road here. Yeah. So she's in seventh heaven here with
nice.
Being able to see them when they drop by.
Sure. Before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I mean, I'm very involved now with re-seeing kind of water issues, again, mythologically, from a mythological point of view and a spiritual point of view. I think it's very deeply involved in the whole, it's not only the Buddhist tradition, there's a worldwide tradition. I got involved with working with, through the peace studies with Penobscot Native tribes down there. One of my mentors was Arnie Neptune, who was an elder in the Penobscots, and I co-led retreats with him, and he was very insightful in the connection to water and to the earth and to ceremonies and rituals around the whole area of Penobscot. And the Penobscots are part of the Wabanakis, who are the same as the up here, the tribes up here.
Sure.
Very similar. They're First Nations.
Yep.
Very similar background. Many of them would be consider themselves Wabanaki or Dawn, people of the Dawn.
Well, thank you for coming to Highland Waves and providing a glimpse of your life and your work. And I hope yours and your wife's recent move here to Margaree will be peaceful, pleasant, and fruitful.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you to our listeners, and the usual reminder to hit the like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date. Remember, subscribing to Highland Waves is free. Please leave a comment so we can continue to improve our programming. Our thought for today is by Mahatma Gandhi, who once said, "An eye for an eye only ends up making the whole world blind."
Yes, exactly.
So long for now, Pat.
Thank you.